Get your ghetto ass out of my line before I call security to drag you out. Patricia Hartwell grabbed Marcus Washington's arm and yanked him backward. His coffee cup flew from his hand, hot liquid splashing across his faded jeans and pooling at his worn sneakers. She stepped on his scattered boarding pass, grinding her designer heel into the paper. "This is first class, not the welfare line," she hissed, positioning her Hermes bag to block his path completely. Marcus, 42, stood perfectly still. His simple black t-shirt and old jeans marked him as prey in her predatory gaze. Around them, Gate 47 fell silent, except for the soft clicking of phone cameras. A teenage girl whispered into her live stream, "Oh my God, she just—" "Security!" Patricia's voice cut through the terminal. "Remove this man immediately!" 200 passengers stared. Some filmed. Others looked away, uncomfortable witnesses to public humiliation. Have you ever watched someone's dignity get stripped away in real time? The gate agent's voice crackled through the speakers. "Flight 847 to New York will begin boarding in 10 minutes. Marcus bent down slowly, collecting his soggy boarding pass from under Patricia's stiletto. The paper was torn, but seat 1A remained visible. He straightened, meeting her furious glare with steady brown eyes. "Ma'am, I have a first-class ticket," he said quietly. Patricia's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Sure you do, sweetie. Let me guess you won the lottery? Found it in a dumpster?" She turned to the growing crowd, seeking validation. "Can you believe this guy?" A middle-aged white man in a golf polo nodded approvingly. "Some people have no shame," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Jennifer Martinez, the gate agent, approached with the practiced smile of someone paid to handle problems. Her eyes immediately fixed on Marcus, not Patricia. "Sir, there seems to be some confusion. Can I see your boarding pass again?" Marcus held out the damp, torn paper. Jennifer examined it like a detective studying evidence, turning it over twice, holding it up to the light. "This is legitimate," she admitted reluctantly. "But I need to verify your ID matches the name." "Of course you do," Patricia snapped. "Check his welfare card while you're at it." 17-year-old Maya Carter had started her live stream as a casual airport boredom killer. Now she gripped her phone tighter as the viewer count climbed. 847, 1,203, 1,847. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. "This is 2025? WTF? Someone call the news. That lady is insane. Record everything, sis." "Y'all, this is getting crazy," Maya whispered into her phone. "This woman just attacked a man for standing in line." Marcus reached for his wallet, movements deliberate and calm. As he pulled out his driver's license, something black and metallic caught the terminal lighting, a card that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Patricia's eyes widened slightly. She'd seen that card before, in the hands of tech executives and hedge fund princes. American Express Centurion. The invitation-only black card that required spending $250,000 annually just to qualify. But the cognitive dissonance was too strong. This man in his thrift store clothes couldn't possibly... "Probably stolen," she declared, louder now. "Jennifer, you need to call security. I feel threatened." The gate agent's radio crackled to life. "Security to Gate 47. Customer dispute." Marcus checked his watch, a detail Patricia missed entirely. The Patek Philippe Nautilus on his wrist was worth more than most people's cars, $78,000 in rose gold and complications, ticking quietly against his dark skin. 8 minutes to boarding," the announcement echoed. Officer Rebecca Thompson arrived first, hand resting casually on her radio. Behind her, Officer Daniel Rodriguez flanked Marcus's right side. Both had responded to customer disputes before. Both unconsciously positioned themselves to contain the black man, not the agitated white woman. "What's the situation?" Thompson asked Jennifer, ignoring Marcus completely. This gentleman claims to have a first-class ticket, but there's been some confusion, Jennifer explained delicately. No confusion, Patricia interjected. He's obviously lying. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs in first class? Maya's live stream had exploded to 3,400 viewers. The hashtag Gate47Drama was trending in Chicago. Local news intern Jake Morrison refreshed his Twitter feed and nearly choked on his coffee. This was content gold. Sir, we're going to need you to step aside while we sort this out, Officer Rodriguez said, gesturing for Marcus to move away from the boarding line. I'd prefer to wait here, Marcus replied evenly. My boarding group will be called in 6 minutes. The simple statement hit like a challenge. Patricia's face flushed crimson. Prefer? You'd prefer? Who do you think you are? I'm a passenger with a confirmed reservation, Marcus said. Bullshit, Patricia's voice carried across the gate area. I fly first class every single week. Chicago to New York, Chicago to LA, Chicago to Miami. I know every frequent flyer in this terminal, and I've never seen you before. She stepped closer, invading his personal space. Her Chanel number, 5 mixed with the scent of superiority and entitlement. You want to know what I think? I think you bought a fake ticket online, or maybe you're running some kind of scam, because there is no possible way that you earned your way into that cabin. The circle of onlookers had grown to 50 people. Some are filmed openly now. Others pretended to check their phones while recording. A few looked genuinely uncomfortable but said nothing. Marcus's phone buzzed. The caller ID read board meeting 7 a.m. He glanced at the time. 6:53. Excuse me, he said, raising the phone to his ear. This will just take a moment. Oh, hell no. Patricia lunged forward, trying to knock the phone from his hand. You're not making calls while we're dealing with your fraud. Officer Thompson finally stepped between them. Ma'am, please step back. But the damage was done. Maya's live stream had captured everything. The viewer count hit 5,200. Comments were moving too fast to read, but the sentiment was clear. Outrage. Arrest her! This is absolutely disgusting. Where is this? I'm calling the airline. Someone please tell me they got her name. Marcus answered his call with the same quiet calm he'd maintained throughout the ordeal. Sarah, I'm running about 30 minutes behind schedule. Please reschedule the board meeting to 7:30. The word board hung in the air like a question mark. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Even Officer Thompson seemed to recalculate her assessment of the situation. Sir, who exactly are you calling? Jennifer asked. Marcus ended the call without answering. He checked his watch again. The gesture was casual, but the timepiece caught the light just wrong enough for Patricia to notice. Her breath caught. 5 minutes to boarding, the announcement reminded them. The crowd pressed closer. Maya repositioned her phone for a better angle. The security officers exchanged glances, suddenly uncertain about their assumptions. And Marcus Washington simply waited, as calm as a man who had absolutely nothing to prove and all the time in the world to prove it. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin boarding Flight 847 to New York. First-class passengers, welcome aboard. The announcement cut through the tension like a starting gun. Patricia's head snapped toward the gate podium, then back to Marcus with predatory focus. This is it, she declared triumphantly. Time to expose your little charade. Maya's live stream had exploded to 8,900 viewers. Her hands trembled as she held the phone steady, comments flowing like a digital waterfall. The hashtag Airline racism was trending nationwide now, climbing toward the top 10. Someone find out who she is. This man has more class than her entire bloodline. I'm never flying this airline again. Update. Local news is picking this up. Gate agent Jennifer's supervisor, Karen Mills, materialized beside the podium. At 45, Karen had climbed the airline hierarchy through a combination of rigid rule following and an uncanny ability to sense which way the wind was blowing. Today, the wind felt like a hurricane. "Jennifer, what's the holdup?" Karen's voice carried the authority of middle management everywhere. "We have a situation with passenger verification," Jennifer explained, gesturing toward the crowd surrounding Marcus. Karen's eyes swept the scene. 2 security officers, an agitated white woman in designer clothes, a calm black man in casual wear, and at least 60 passengers with phones out. Her mental calculus was swift and merciless. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step over here." Karen directed Marcus toward the corner, away from the boarding line. "We need to resolve this before we can continue boarding." "I'd prefer to board with my assigned group," Marcus replied. The word "prefer" again. Patricia's face contorted with rage. "There it is again! Did you hear that attitude? This man thinks he can dictate terms to airline employees." She whirled to face the crowd. "This is exactly what's wrong with this country. No respect, no accountability." A woman in her 60s nodded approvingly. "In my day, people knew their place," she muttered to her husband, but the crowd wasn't monolithic. A young Latina woman stepped forward, phone recording. "Ma'am, he's just standing in line." "You're the one causing problems." "Excuse me?" Patricia spun around. "Are you defending this situation?" "I'm defending basic human decency," the woman replied. The fault lines were becoming visible. Older white passengers generally sided with Patricia. Younger, more diverse voices pushed back. The gate area was transforming into a social media coliseum. 2 more security officers arrived, their heavy boots echoing against the terminal floor. Officer Williams and Officer Carter flanked the growing circle, creating an intimidating perimeter around Marcus. The visual was unmistakable. 4 uniformed officers surrounding 1 unarmed black man. Patricia smirked with satisfaction. Finally, some backup. "Now we can get to the bottom of this fraud." Maya adjusted her phone angle, whispering urgently to her audience. "Y'all, they got this man surrounded like he's some kind of criminal. This is insane." Officer Rodriguez's radio crackled. "Unit 47, we have additional units en route. The media has been alerted to a situation at your location." Marcus's phone rang again. This time, Patricia was ready. "Oh, absolutely not!" She lunged forward, grabbing for the device. "You're not calling your gang friends or whatever." Officer Thompson finally moved decisively, stepping between them. "Ma'am, you cannot touch other passengers." "I'm protecting everyone here," Patricia shrieked. "This man is obviously dangerous. Look how calm he is. That's not normal." The observation was bizarre, but somehow struck a chord with several onlookers. Marcus's composure in the face of escalating hostility did seem almost supernatural. While Patricia grew more unhinged by the minute, he remained steady as granite. A middle-aged businessman in a rumpled suit spoke up. "Lady's got a point. Why isn't he angry? I'd be furious if someone was questioning my ticket like this." "Maybe because he's guilty," suggested another passenger, a woman clutching designer luggage. "Innocent people get defensive." The crowd psychology was shifting. Marcus's very calmness was being weaponized against him, interpreted as evidence of guilt rather than grace under pressure. Maya whispered into her live stream. "Y'all, I've been filming for 20 minutes and this man hasn't raised his voice once. Not once. Meanwhile, Karen over here is having a whole breakdown." "That's not Karen, that's Patricia, lol. Anyone else think he might be famous?" The calmer he gets, the crazier she gets. "Plot twist incoming, I can feel it." Marcus answered his phone with the same measured tone. "David, I need you to pull the passenger manifest for Flight 847. Yes, right now. And contact legal. We may have a situation that requires documentation." The word legal hit the assembled crowd like an electric shock. Karen Mills felt her stomach drop. Jennifer's hands began to shake. Even Officer Thompson straightened unconsciously. Patricia's voice climbed to a shriek. "Legal? Legal? You're threatening to sue us for stopping your scam? I'm not threatening anyone, Marcus said calmly. I'm simply ensuring proper documentation. A new voice cut through the chaos. What exactly is happening here? Captain James Rodriguez, no relation to the security officer, approached with the measured stride of someone accustomed to command. The pilot's stripes on his shoulders commanded instant respect from the gate crew. Captain, Karen Mills rushed forward. We have a passenger verification issue that's delaying boarding. Captain Rodriguez's eyes swept the scene. The filming passengers, the surrounded black man, the hysterical white woman, the nervous employees. In 30 years of flying, he'd seen this movie before. Ma'am, he addressed Patricia directly. I understand there's some confusion about seating? Patricia seized the opportunity. Captain, thank God someone with authority is here. This man is trying to board first class with what I suspect is a fraudulent ticket. He clearly doesn't belong. Ma'am, the captain interrupted firmly. I don't determine who belongs anywhere based on appearance. If the gentleman has a valid ticket, he flies. The rebuke stung. Patricia's face flushed crimson. Supervisor Karen made a calculated decision. Better to err on the side of corporate caution than deal with a lawsuit. Sir, while we sort this out, I can offer you a complimentary upgrade on the next flight, plus a voucher for... I have a confirmed first-class seat on this flight, Marcus interrupted gently. I see no reason to change my travel plans. The politeness somehow made it worse. Patricia began pacing like a caged animal. This is insane. Insane. You people are letting him manipulate you. She pointed accusingly at the crowd. Can't you see what he's doing? Playing the victim, acting all calm and reasonable, making us look bad. A teenage boy with a Yankees cap snorted. Lady, you're making yourself look bad. Don't you dare! Patricia whirled toward him, but caught herself. Even in her fury, some instinct warned her against verbally attacking a minor on camera. Maya's viewer count hit 12,000. News vans were reportedly en route to O'Hare. #Gate47 had joined the trending topics alongside #Airline racism and #had justice for Marcus. Though no one had mentioned Marcus's name on camera. The situation was spiraling beyond anyone's control. Airport Operations Manager Tom Bradley hurried over, his Bluetooth headset blinking with incoming calls from corporate headquarters. People, we need to resolve this immediately, Bradley announced. We have media requests, social media coverage, and corporations asking questions. Patricia seized on his arrival. Finally, sir, I demand this man be removed immediately. He's disrupting the entire airport with his fraudulent... Ma'am, please lower your voice, Bradley requested. We're handling this professionally. Professionally? Patricia's voice reached a new octave. A professional would have been stopping this scam 20 minutes ago. Officer Rodriguez received another radio update. We have media requests for statements. Captain wants to know our status. Status is we have a passenger verification in progress, Thompson replied carefully. Marcus checked his watch again. The gesture was becoming automatic, but this time Patricia was watching. Her eyes focused on his wrist like a laser. Wait. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Wait just a fucking minute. The profanity cut through the crowd noise. Several passengers gasped. Children covered their ears. That watch. Patricia stepped closer, squinting. That can't be. Marcus said nothing but didn't attempt to hide the timepiece. Oh my God. Patricia's face went white. That's a Patek Philippe. That's an $80,000 watch. The crowd stirred, phones angled for better shots of Marcus's wrist. So what if it is? The Latina woman called out. Maybe he saved it. Nobody saves $80,000 for a watch, Patricia screamed. Nobody dresses like a homeless person and wears an $80,000 watch unless they're... She trailed off, the implications hitting her like cold water. Maya's live stream exploded with speculation. Plot twist incoming. Rich dude traveling incognito? She's about to find out. This is better than Netflix. Karen Mills was now visibly sweating. A passenger with an $80,000 watch who was casually called legal was not someone she wanted to antagonize, but backing down now with cameras rolling would look like she was profiling based on appearance. "Sir," she began carefully, "perhaps we could resolve this more privately." "I'm comfortable resolving it here," Marcus said. The final boarding announcement echoed through the gate area. "This is the final boarding call for Flight 847 to New York. All remaining passengers, please board immediately." Patricia looked at the gate, then at Marcus, then at the crowd of filming passengers. Her world was crumbling in real time, broadcast to thousands of strangers. "I don't care who you think you are," she whispered, but loud enough for the microphones to catch. "I don't care what you're wearing or what games you're playing. You do not belong in first class. You do not belong on my flight. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person tries to steal their way into spaces they don't deserve." The words hung in the air like a curse. Marcus Washington looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, just barely, just enough to suggest he knew something she didn't. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I think you're about to be very surprised." Marcus pulled out his phone with the same deliberate calm he'd maintained throughout the ordeal. The crowd pressed closer, sensing something significant was about to happen. Maya angled her live stream for the perfect shot. Viewer count climbing past 15,000. "Sarah," he said into the phone, his voice carrying a new authority that made everyone freeze. "This is Marcus. I need you to pull up employee records immediately." The tone was unmistakable executive command. Not a request, not a plea, an order. Patricia's smirk faltered. Something in his voice didn't match the man she'd been humiliating for the past 30 minutes. "Employee ID number 4739B, Patricia Hartwell. Customer Service Supervisor, Chicago Hub." Marcus's eyes never left Patricia's face as he spoke. "I need her complete file, performance reviews, and disciplinary record on my desk within 10 minutes. The color drained from Patricia's face like water from a broken dam. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly, a fish gasping on dry land. Who are you calling?" she whispered. The question hung in the air. 60 passengers held their breath. 4 security officers exchanged uncertain glances. Gate agents Jennifer and Karen Mills stared in growing horror as the pieces began falling into place. "Also pull the employment records for Jennifer Martinez, employee 8847A, and Supervisor Karen Mills, employee 2156C, Marcus continued into the phone. "I want to review their training certifications, specifically regarding non-discrimination protocols." Officer Thompson's hand moved away from her radio. Officer Rodriguez took an unconscious step back. The body language shift was subtle but unmistakable. They were no longer treating Marcus as a potential threat. Maya whispered into her live stream, "Y'all, something big is happening. This man is pulling employee numbers from memory. OMG, he knows their employee IDs. Plot twist of the century. She's about to get ended. Who is he?" Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, his pilot's training kicking in. When situations escalated beyond normal parameters, you gathered information quickly and acted decisively. "Sir, may I ask who you're speaking with?" Marcus held up one finger, a gesture so naturally authoritative that a commercial airline captain actually waited for permission to speak further. "Sarah, one more thing. I need David Carter to be legal here immediately. Gate 47, O'Hare Terminal 3. We have a situation involving employee discrimination, potential civil rights violations, and what appears to be systemic failure in bias prevention protocols. Legal, civil rights violations, systemic failure." The words hit the assembled airport staff like sledgehammers. Karen Mills felt her knees weaken. Jennifer started crying softly. Operations manager Bradley frantically typed on his phone, likely messaging someone much higher up the food chain. Patricia found her voice, though it came out as a croak. You can't possibly. Ma'am, Marcus said, ending his call and giving her his full attention for the first time. I think we need to have a conversation. He reached into his wallet, not the quick grab of someone fishing for ID, but the measured movement of someone accessing exactly what they needed. The black Amex Centurion card appeared first, followed by what looked like a corporate identification badge. The crowd leaned forward en masse. My name is Marcus Washington, he said clearly, his voice carrying across the gate area without effort. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Washington Holdings, LLC. The first gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands. Washington Holdings currently owns a 34% equity stake in this airline, making us the principal shareholder. The second wave of gasps was louder. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit," loud enough for the live stream to catch. Patricia's legs gave out. She stumbled backward until she hit the wall of windows overlooking the tarmac, her designer bag falling from nerveless fingers. That's impossible, she breathed. You're just... I'm just what, Patricia? Marcus asked quietly. The question echoed with 30 minutes of accumulated humiliation. Every assumption she'd made, every slur she'd thrown, every demand for his removal, all of it now reflecting back at her like mirrors in a funhouse of her own creation. Captain Rodriguez was the first to recover his composure. 30 years of emergency training had taught him to adapt to rapidly changing situations. Mr. Washington, on behalf of the flight crew, I apologize for any... Captain, you handled yourself professionally throughout this incident, Marcus interrupted. My concern is not with the flight crew. His gaze swept across the gate staff. Karen Mills was now openly sweating despite the airport's air conditioning. Jennifer had progressed from soft crying to barely contained sobs. My concern is with a culture that allows customers to physically assault other passengers while employees stand by and watch. A culture that immediately assumes fraud when a black man presents a first-class ticket. A culture that calls security to contain the victim rather than the aggressor. Each word was delivered with surgical precision. No raised voice, no emotional outburst, just facts, laid out like evidence in a courtroom. Maya's live stream had exploded to 25,000 viewers. The comments were moving too fast to read, but the sentiment was universal. Absolute shock and a growing sense of justice being served. I cannot believe this. She assaulted the owner of the airline. Karen is about to lose her job. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Operations manager Bradley stepped forward, his Bluetooth headset silent for the first time in an hour. The corporate had stopped calling. They were probably too busy having emergency meetings about the viral video of their principal shareholder being assaulted at his own gate. Mr. Washington, sir, I want to personally apologize. Tom, Marcus said, and Bradley's eyes widened at the casual use of his first name. We'll address the operational failures later. Right now, I'm more interested in understanding how an employee like Patricia Hartwell maintains her position despite what I assume is a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Patricia tried to speak, but only a strangled sound emerged. Her entire world, her job, her status, her sense of superiority was crumbling in real time, broadcast to thousands of witnesses. The employee records will tell us everything we need to know, Marcus continued. Customer complaints, previous incidents, training completions. The data always tells the truth. A new voice cut through the crowd. Mr. Washington? David Carter, Esquire, approached with the hurried stride of a lawyer who'd been pulled out of another meeting for an emergency. His tailored suit and leather briefcase marked him as serious legal firepower. David, thank you for coming so quickly, Marcus said, his tone shifting to one of familiar collegiality. We have a situation that requires careful documentation. The arrival of legal counsel was the final nail in the coffin of Patricia's denial. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't fraud. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. She had physically assaulted the owner of the airline, on camera, in front of hundreds of witnesses, while demanding he be arrested for the crime of existing in a space she felt he didn't deserve. "I didn't know," she whispered, the words barely audible. "I couldn't have known." Marcus turned to her, and for the first time his expression held something that might have been pity. "Patricia," he said gently, "that's exactly the problem. You made assumptions about who I am based solely on my appearance. You treated me as less than human because I didn't look like your idea of a first-class passenger." He paused, letting the words settle. "The question now is, what are we going to do to make sure this never happens to anyone else?" The crowd stood in absolute silence, watching the most powerful person in the room extend grace to the woman who had tried to destroy his dignity. But Patricia Hartwell's reckoning was just beginning. David Carter opened his leather briefcase with practiced efficiency, pulling out a tablet and legal pad. The click of his Mont Blanc pen against paper was the only sound in the suddenly silent gate area. "Mr. Washington, I've reviewed the preliminary footage from social media," the attorney said, his voice carrying the weight of expensive legal education. "We have clear documentation of physical assault, discriminatory language, and what appears to be systematic bias from multiple airline employees." Marcus nodded, his attention shifting to the assembled group of airline staff. Karen Mills looked like she might vomit. Jennifer had stopped crying but stood frozen in terror. Operations manager Bradley kept checking his phone, probably fielding calls from executives who were just now realizing the magnitude of their crisis. "Let's start with some facts," Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone of a boardroom presentation. "This airline recorded $12.3 billion in revenue last quarter. Customer service complaints have increased 47% year over year, with discrimination-related incidents comprising 23% of all complaints filed with the Department of Transportation. The precision of the numbers hit like hammer blows. These weren't estimates or approximations. These were exact figures that could only come from someone with access to the most sensitive corporate data." Federal Aviation Regulation 250.9 requires air carriers to establish procedures for handling discrimination complaints, Marcus continued. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination by any program receiving federal assistance, which includes every commercial airline operating in the United States. David Carter nodded approvingly as he took notes. Maya's live stream audience had swelled to 31,000 viewers, with major news outlets now requesting permission to use her footage. "Patricia," Marcus addressed her directly. She flinched as if her name were a physical blow. "Employee number 4739B, hired March 15, 2019, currently on disciplinary probation following 3 customer complaints filed in the past 18 months. All 3 complaints involved allegations of discriminatory treatment toward passengers of color." Patricia's mouth fell open. The specific dates, the employee number, the exact complaint count information that should have been confidential personnel data rolled off his tongue like a grocery list. How could you possibly, she stammered. "Because I receive quarterly reports on all employee disciplinary actions across our network," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Washington Holdings' investment in this airline isn't passive. We actively monitor operational performance, including employee conduct that could expose the company to legal liability." He turned to Jennifer, who visibly shrank under his attention. "Jennifer Martinez, employee 8847A, hired July 2021, required bias prevention training, completed 6 months late, customer service certification, expired as of last month. Current performance rating, needs improvement, with specific notations regarding assumption-based passenger interactions." Jennifer's tears resumed with renewed intensity. Every professional failing, every missed deadline, every negative review was being laid bare in front of her colleagues and hundreds of witnesses. Karen Mills tried to step forward, perhaps hoping to deflect attention from her subordinates. Marcus's gaze shifted to her like a searchlight finding its target. Supervisor Karen Mills, employee 2156C, 8 years with the company. Promoted to supervisory role despite failing leadership assessment twice. Currently responsible for gate operations that have generated 34% more discrimination complaints than the network average. The mathematical precision was devastating. Not just complaints, more complaints than comparable locations. Not just problems, measurably worse problems under her specific leadership. The Illinois Human Rights Act, Section 5-102, makes it unlawful for any place of public accommodation to deny services based on race, color, or national origin, Marcus continued, his voice never rising above conversational level. Violations carry penalties up to $25,000 per incident, plus actual damages and attorney fees. Captain Rodriguez, who had remained professionally silent throughout the escalation, finally spoke up. Mr. Washington, as the pilot in command of this aircraft, I want to ensure we handle this situation appropriately. What are your expectations moving forward? Marcus appreciated the direct approach. Captain, your conduct throughout this incident has been exemplary. You attempted to de-escalate the situation and maintained focus on passenger safety and dignity. My concerns are not with the flight crew. He gestured toward David Carter, who had filled several pages with notes and legal citations. My concerns are with systematic failures that allow incidents like this to occur, to escalate, and to be recorded for public consumption without a single employee intervening to protect a passenger from assault and harassment. The word assault sent visible shockwaves through the crowd. Legal terminology had a way of making situations feel suddenly more serious, more permanent, more consequential. David, what's our legal exposure assessment? Marcus asked his attorney. Significant, Carter replied without hesitation. Physical assault captured on video with multiple witnesses. Discriminatory language documented via live stream and social media. Failure of airline employees to protect passenger safety. We're looking at federal civil rights violations, state discrimination laws, and potential DOT enforcement action. He flipped through his notes. Conservative estimate for legal liability, $2.3 million in direct costs, plus reputational damage that could affect stock valuation by 3 to 5%. The numbers were sobering. Patricia's 30 minutes of rage had potentially cost the airline millions of dollars and would likely trigger federal investigation. Maya whispered into her live stream, "Y'all, this man is about to end entire careers with spreadsheets and law books. This is the most savage takedown I've ever witnessed. CEO using facts and logic to destroy racism. This is better than any courtroom drama. She's about to lose everything. Get her Marcus." Marcus pulled out his phone again. "Sarah, I need you to conference in Janet Morrison from HR and Robert Kim from Legal Affairs. We're implementing immediate corrective action." The phone's speaker activated, filling the gate area with the voices of high-level corporate executives who were clearly in crisis mode. "Marcus, we've been monitoring the social media coverage," came a woman's voice, presumably Janet from HR. "Legal is recommending immediate damage control measures." "Janet, I'm not interested in damage control," Marcus replied. "I'm interested in ensuring this never happens again to any passenger on our network." He looked directly at Patricia, who had sunk into one of the gate area chairs, her designer suit wrinkled and her composure completely shattered. "Effective immediately, Patricia Hartwell is terminated for cause, physical assault of a passenger, discriminatory conduct, and violation of company policy 847B regarding respectful customer service." Patricia's head snapped up. "You can't. I have tenure. I have rights." "You have the right to file for unemployment," Marcus replied calmly. "You forfeited all other employment rights when you put your hands on another passenger." He turned to Jennifer. "Jennifer Martinez will serve a 2-week unpaid suspension followed by mandatory bias prevention training and 6 months of performance probation. Failure to complete training or any subsequent incidents will result in immediate termination. Jennifer nodded frantically, clearly grateful to still have a job. Karen Mills will be removed from supervisory duties effective today, with a corresponding salary adjustment of $18,000 annually. She will return to gate agent responsibilities and complete management bias training before any future promotional consideration. The systematic dismantling was surgical in its precision. Each consequence fitted the specific failure, each punishment calibrated to the exact level of responsibility. Additionally, Marcus continued, we're implementing immediate policy changes across our network. Body cameras for all customer service employees, real-time bias detection software for customer interactions, monthly third-party audits of discrimination complaint handling. David Carter looked up from his notes. The legal documentation will be completed within 48 hours. We'll need statements from witnesses and copies of all social media footage for our records. Marcus checked his watch. The $80,000 Patek Philippe that had been Patricia's first clue she'd made a catastrophic mistake. The flight to New York has been delayed 45 minutes due to this incident. All passengers will receive compensation vouchers. First-class passengers will receive additional accommodation for the disruption. He paused, looking around the gate area at the faces of passengers who had witnessed the entire spectacle. Most importantly, we're establishing a $10 million fund for bias prevention training and discrimination complaint resolution, because dignity shouldn't be a privilege reserved for passengers who look a certain way or dress to someone else's expectations. The crowd began to applaud slowly at first, then building to sustained clapping that echoed through the terminal. Patricia sat in her chair, staring at the floor, her career and reputation destroyed by her own prejudice and captured forever in high-definition video. Marcus Washington had accomplished something remarkable. He had transformed a moment of personal humiliation into systematic change that would protect thousands of future passengers. And he had done it all without raising his voice. 2 hours later, terminal conference room. The emergency meeting had been called with military precision. Marcus sat at the head of the polished conference table, flanked by David Carter and 3 senior executives who had been helicoptered in from corporate headquarters. Maya's live stream had ended, but the video was already viral across every major platform. Dr. Angela Foster, the airline's newly appointed Director of Diversity and Inclusion, presented her tablet screen to the room. Current social media metrics: 2.3 million views across platforms, 847,000 shares, trending in 23 countries. Remarkably, 89% of comments are positive toward our response. Patricia Hartwell was nowhere to be seen. Security had escorted her from the premises within 30 minutes of Marcus's ultimatum, her airline ID badge confiscated, her access to all company systems immediately revoked. Her termination paperwork is complete, reported Janet Morrison from HR via video conference. Legal has confirmed she has no grounds for wrongful termination claims given the documented assault and discriminatory conduct. Marcus nodded approvingly. What about the other employees? Jennifer Martinez reported for her mandatory training this morning, Janet continued. She'll complete 40 hours of bias prevention coursework plus customer service recertification. Karen Mills has been reassigned to gate operations at Midway with the salary adjustment you specified. David Carter consulted his notes. We've also received cooperation agreements from the 4 security officers involved. They'll participate in de-escalation training focused on implicit bias recognition. 6 months later, corporate headquarters. The quarterly board meeting had become Marcus's favorite part of running the airline. The numbers told a story of transformation that even the most skeptical investors couldn't ignore. Discrimination complaints are down 73% across the network, reported Chief Operating Officer Sarah Kim, the same Sarah who had pulled Patricia's employee records during the Gate 47 incident. Customer satisfaction scores have increased 34%, with specific improvement in respectful treatment categories. The conference room's massive screen displayed real-time data from the new bias monitoring system. Green indicators showed positive customer interactions across 847 gate locations. Yellow flags marked situations requiring supervisor intervention. Red alerts, thankfully, triggered immediate response protocols. The body camera program has been remarkably effective, added Security Chief Michael Torres. Customer complaints regarding employee conduct have dropped 67%. More importantly, employees report feeling more confident in their interactions, knowing they have protection against false accusations. Marcus studied the financial projections. Legal settlement costs? Down 82% year over year, David Carter reported with satisfaction. The $10 million Discrimination Prevention Fund has paid for itself 3 times over in avoided litigation costs. But the most impressive metric wasn't financial. It was human. The Patricia Hartwell effect. Dr. Foster had coined the term during a Harvard Business Review interview. The Patricia Hartwell effect described the measurable change in employee behavior when consequences for discrimination became swift, public, and career-ending. We've documented a 94% completion rate for voluntary bias training, Dr. Foster explained to the board. Employees aren't just meeting minimum requirements, they're actively seeking additional education. The airline industry had taken notice. 7 major carriers had implemented similar policies within 6 months. The Department of Transportation had established new bias reporting requirements. Congressional hearings on airline discrimination had resulted in federal legislation requiring annual bias audits for all carriers receiving federal contracts. Technology solutions. The AI-powered sentiment analysis system had exceeded all projections. Developed in partnership with MIT's Computer Science Department, the software analyzed tone, word choice, and interaction patterns in real time. The system flagged 12,847 potentially problematic interactions in the first quarter, reported Chief Technology Officer Lisa Park. Early intervention prevented 94% of those from escalating to formal complaints. Marcus appreciated the precision. Technology couldn't eliminate human bias, but it could identify patterns and create accountability structures that made discrimination expensive and career-limiting. The legal framework. David Carter had worked with civil rights organizations to create what legal scholars now call the Washington Standards, a framework for corporate response to discrimination incidents that balanced swift justice with due process protections. The key innovation was real-time documentation, Carter explained, during a Georgetown Law School symposium. Traditional discrimination cases often become he said, she said disputes. When everything is recorded and live-streamed, the facts become indisputable. The framework had been adopted by hotels, restaurants, retail chains, and government agencies. The Gate 47 incident had accidentally created a new model for corporate accountability in the social media age. Personal impact. Maya Carter, the teenager whose live stream had captured everything, had parlayed her viral moment into a social justice advocacy platform. Her followers now numbered in the millions, and her Document Discrimination campaign had helped expose bias incidents across multiple industries. That day at the airport changed my whole perspective, Maya reflected during a TED Talk 6 months later. I realized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just hold up your phone and let the truth speak for itself. Jennifer Martinez had completed her training and earned promotion to senior gate agent. Her experience with implicit bias had made her one of the airline's most effective customer service representatives, particularly skilled at de-escalating tense situations. I learned that assumptions are dangerous, Jennifer wrote in her performance review. Every passenger deserves dignity, regardless of how they look or what I think about their background. Karen Mills had struggled initially with her demotion, but eventually found purpose in her new role. Her experience managing the Gate 47 crisis poorly had taught her valuable lessons about leadership under pressure. I thought good management meant making quick decisions, Mills reflected during her 6-month review. I learned that good management means making right decisions, even when they're uncomfortable. The systemic change. The most significant transformation was cultural. Employee surveys showed an 89% improvement in confidence when dealing with diverse passenger interactions. Training completion rates had increased from 67% to 97%. Most importantly, bystander intervention during discriminatory incidents had increased by 340%. "We didn't just change policies," Marcus explained during a Forbes interview. "We changed the understanding that discrimination has consequences, immediate, public, and career-ending consequences." The airline's stock price had increased 23% since the Gate 47 incident. Investors appreciated companies that could turn potential crises into competitive advantages through decisive leadership and systematic reform. The measurement of justice. Dr. Foster's final report to the board contained the metric Marcus valued most: 0 discrimination-related lawsuits filed in the previous 6 months. Not reduced. Not settled quietly. 0. "We've essentially eliminated the legal risk that discrimination poses to our operations," she reported. "More importantly, we've created an environment where every passenger can expect dignified treatment regardless of their appearance, background, or assumptions others might make about them." Marcus looked around the conference room at his executive team, a diverse group that had been carefully assembled based on competence, character, and commitment to the company's values. "The Gate 47 incident cost Patricia Hartwell her career," he said quietly. "But it may have saved the careers of every employee who learned that discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's professionally suicidal." The transformation was complete. A moment of personal humiliation had become systematic change affecting millions of passengers annually. Justice, it turned out, was best served with data, consequences, and unwavering commitment to the principle that dignity isn't negotiable. 1 year later, Marcus Washington stood at the podium of the National Civil Rights Convention, looking out at an audience of activists, attorneys, and executives who had gathered to discuss systemic change in corporate America. The Gate 47 incident had become a case study in business schools, law schools, and diversity training programs across the country. 12 months ago, I was physically assaulted and publicly humiliated for the crime of existing in a space someone felt I didn't deserve," he began, his voice carrying the same quiet authority that had transformed a moment of personal crisis into industry-wide reform. The audience was silent, many having watched Maya's viral live stream that had now been viewed over 47 million times worldwide. "Today, I want to share what we've learned about the power of accountability, the importance of systematic change, and the difference between revenge and justice." The numbers tell the story. The transformation had been measurable and profound. Airline discrimination complaints had dropped 67% industry-wide. The Washington Standards for Bias Incident Response had been adopted by 847 companies across 23 industries. Federal legislation requiring bias audits for government contractors had passed with bipartisan support. "We didn't just change one airline," Marcus continued. "We demonstrated that calm, data-driven responses to injustice create more lasting impact than emotional retaliation ever could." Maya Carter, now 18 and studying journalism at Northwestern, had been invited to speak alongside Marcus. Her document discrimination platform had helped expose bias incidents in retail, hospitality, healthcare, and education. "The most important lesson from that day," Maya addressed the crowd, "is that everyone has the power to be a witness. Your phone is a tool for justice. Your voice matters. Your willingness to document injustice can protect others." The ripple effect. Patricia Hartwell had become an unintentional catalyst for change. Her assault on Marcus had sparked conversations in boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms across America about the assumptions we make, the biases we carry, and the systems that enable discrimination to flourish. 7 major airlines had implemented bias prevention programs. 12 hotel chains had adopted real-time discrimination monitoring. Federal agencies had established new reporting requirements for bias incidents involving government contractors. Patricia Hartwell destroyed her own career through prejudice, Marcus reflected. But her actions inadvertently protected thousands of future travelers from experiencing what I experienced that morning. The personal legacy. The incident had changed Marcus in ways he hadn't expected. The CEO who had once avoided public speaking now regularly addressed conferences about leadership, dignity, and the responsibility of power. I learned that privilege isn't just about what you have, he explained. It's about what you do with what you have when others can't defend themselves. The airline's $10 million bias prevention fund had grown to $47 million through matching donations from other corporations. The money funded training programs, bias research, and legal support for discrimination victims who couldn't afford high-powered attorneys. The call to action. As his speech concluded, Marcus looked directly into the cameras broadcasting his remarks worldwide. If you've witnessed discrimination, speak up. If you've experienced bias, document it. If you have power, use it to protect those who don't. He paused, letting the words settle. Share your stories in the comments. Every narrative of injustice helps build awareness. Every documented incident creates accountability. Every person who refuses to remain silent makes our society more just. The audience rose in sustained applause, but Marcus raised his hand for silence. Subscribe to platforms that amplify marginalized voices. Follow Maya Carter and other young activists who are documenting discrimination in real time. Use the hashtag #DIGNITYFIRST when you share stories of standing up to prejudice. The final challenge. Most importantly, remember that justice isn't a spectator sport. When you see someone being treated unfairly because of their race, their appearance, or assumptions others make about them, you have a choice. Marcus's voice grew stronger, filling the auditorium. You can stand by and watch. Or you can remember that dignity is not negotiable, respect is not optional, and every human being deserves to be treated with basic decency regardless of how they look or what others assume about their background. The applause was deafening, but Marcus wasn't finished. Patricia Hartwell made assumptions about me based on my appearance. Those assumptions cost her everything, but they also created an opportunity for systematic change that has protected millions of travelers. He smiled, the same barely perceptible expression that had signaled to Patricia that she was about to be very surprised. That's the power of turning personal pain into public progress. That's the difference between revenge and justice. And that's why every one of us has the responsibility to ensure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Join the movement. Share this story if you believe dignity should be universal. Comment below with your own experiences of witnessing or confronting discrimination. Subscribe to Blacktail Stories for more narratives of justice prevailing over prejudice. Use hashtag #DignityFirst to amplify stories of courage, accountability, and systematic change. Because sometimes the most powerful response to hatred isn't anger, it's the quiet determination to build a better world for everyone.